Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Kinsler,
My name's TJR.
and we are very excited because today we're going to talk about Lost and Found Rarities, which is the second disc on Tattoo, the 40th Anniversary Deluxe Edition from, of course, the Rolling Stones.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular disc, you might almost call it an album, features 9 previously unreleased songs that have been newly completed, meaning that they had started these tracks primarily back in the 70s, and then they've put on additional vocals and additional guitar work and other, I guess, instrumentation more recently. And there's really some fantastic cuts here. According to the liner notes in the booklet that was written by Jeff Slate, these tracks date back to as far as the sessions for Goat's Head Soup, and they go all the way through late 1970s. And the band, I guess more recently, they went in and let's say some of them may have not had finished vocals, or maybe they needed another guitar part or something. They went back and completed these, and now that's what you have on this disc of 9 tracks is, these basically now they're finished recordings or finished songs. And that's what fills this disc. And it's I think one of the highlights of this 40th anniversary reissue of Tattoo You.
Definitely it is. This is a pretty good, as far as these kind of second disc go. I don't want to say demos or outtakes, but this is a pretty good, solid disc of unreleased tracks, in my opinion, just overall. But please continue. Let me go ahead and
I was going to say that's kind of what I wanted to say to kick it off. And I thought what we do for everybody today is we're going to go track by track through these all 9 tracks, and you'll hear from both TJ and myself. We'll talk about what we think. We may agree, we may not agree on everything, and we might have different insights or different things that really stand out to us about these tracks. And I thought what we do is I think it's definitely worth a full-length discussion here. What do you think, TJ?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Why don't you kick it off with "Living in the Heart of Love," which I know is the lead-off track on this.
It was also the lead-off single as far as the advanced tracks when they were announcing that this was going to be coming out. This is the lead single, and I think, I'll be honest, there are much stronger tracks on this bonus disc, much stronger ones in my opinion than this one. I'm not saying it's a bad track. I think it's pretty good, a pretty good rocker. I don't think it's exceptional. The 2 strongest aspects of this single is one, mixed vocal. I think it's a very strong vocal from him, even if the track may not be quite up to the level of the vocal, in my opinion. It's not quite up to that level. I think the other best thing about this is Nicky Hopkins' piano. Mm-hmm. I think his piano adds a lot of life to this track, especially during the breakdown after the chorus. That little piano, those arpeggios he does, just add a nice touch of eloquence to the song, which is a weird word to be using with a Rolling Stones song of this style, where it's kind of supposed to be one of these barn burner rockers, but it does add this nice bit of eloquence to it, a nice counterbalance to what is essentially they're going for a barn burner with this one.
Yeah, they are.
Those are my thoughts on it.
No, please. What I would add is that it sounds like I probably like this cut a little bit more than you do. Uh-huh. I would also highlight Charlie Watts' killer work behind the drum kit, especially in the beginning. It really stands out to me. Mm-hmm. And obviously we're all still missing Charlie Watts too, so maybe I'm more thinking about it, but I really thought his, that the groove itself was pretty good, and I give him a lot of credit. And I also noticed Nicky Hopkins' piano playing is just fantastic on this cut. Mm-hmm. And and I think it is and you kind of alluded to it, Mick Jagger's vocals are killer here. He sounds great, and I think the band is kind of firing all cylinders. It's kind of doing one of these straight ahead signature rockers, and I think it's a good track to lead off the album.
It's got all this commercial potential. That's probably why they let off with it. I think there are stronger tracks. For instance, the next track 2, Fiji Jim. This to me is more like I thought it should have started for this disc, because it is almost like we've got a little album here. Not unlike that bonus disc that came with Some Girls, where you literally had a whole second album. Right. not demos, not outtakes. There is one alternate take on this disc that we'll get to at the end, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, this is very similar to that, where you've almost got a whole second album here. But Fiji Jim, good, solid rock and blues groove, in my opinion. I think a little more production work could have helped a bit, but otherwise, just a really solid, one of those kind of hypnotic grooves that you could see them jamming out on for 6 to 8 minutes.
Exactly. There's some, and TJ, not to cut you off, but yeah, I similarly, like you said, it's kind of like a great blues meets rock groove. Has some really dynamic guitar work on it, which we always want to hear from the Stones. And of course, Mick Jagger, as we might keep repeating, sounds great on this song. And, and like you were talking about how it jams, that's one of the things that stood out to me. That long jam at the end has some really great, if I'm recalling right here, has some great blues harmonica too, that really empowers the track. When it, rather than it kind of like gets repetitive, I think the Stones have a way of adding other things into it, so it keeps it interesting for the whole run of the song.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we're pretty much in agreement on this one here.
Yeah.
And after that, we have track 3, which is a cover, Troubles A-Comin', originally recorded by the Shy-Lights. And I think this is a really awesome cover. Sometimes I'm a little bit mixed on certain Rolling Stones covers of classic soul and Motown songs. Sometimes some of them I think work really well. Some of them in the past I don't think have worked as well as they could have. I won't name specific examples during this, but that's just kind of some of my observations. But this is one I think that works really, really good. What's interesting to me is that the Shy-Lights version was much more pop sounding, much more 60s pop sounding. And the Stones really took this and really added a much more grittier traditional blues sound to it, in the very traditional sense of the word. And I like the Shy-Lights version. I think it's a great version too. But they were going for more of a pop sound. At some point, maybe you or I'm going off on a tangent here, sorry.
Uh-huh.
But at some point, talking about just the fact that there were, when we think of soul music from the 60s, there was a subgenre of soul music that was really trying to appeal to mainstream white audiences and had a much more pop sound to it. Mm-hmm. And not saying it was not good for that reason. I'm just saying it was a sound that they were going for. And it's a subgenre that I don't think gets explored enough. Maybe at some point we'll talk about that, or I'll just
we need to do that. I agree. And one of the things that I read in the liner notes, so I don't want to take credit for it here. Oh, yeah. But this particular version, like you said, it was definitely reinterpreted so as a Stone song. They said it kind of recalls Tumbling Dice and in terms of the rhythmic groove. And I think that's pretty accurate. I think that people that like Tumbling Dice and stuff will like this version. Like you said, it's not trying to be faithful to the original. The Stones have made it their own, but I think it's a great version. And yeah, it's I agree with you. It's really wonderful to hear it.
Cool. Yeah. After that, we have another cover recorded by Jimmy Reed, Shame, Shame, Shame. And now here, they're just being as faithful as they can be. They're not trying to reinvent this particular wheel. They're just being very faithful, right down to the opening guitar riffs. Mm-hmm. I can kind of see Keith Richards almost saying, well, there's nothing we can do. Well, there's nothing we can do to really improve this. So let's just stick as close as we can and hope nobody arrests us, or something like that. I kind of picture him, talking that way about it. And, but yeah, no, this is just a good, solid remake of that song, because they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're just being as faithful as they can. I really feel that both Shame, Shame, Shame and Troubles A-Comin' benefit from the fact that the Stones recently recorded this album of blues covers, and these two tracks feel like they could have been part of that album, in my opinion.
Yeah, that I hadn't thought of that offhand, but boy, that's a really excellent observation. fully agree with you. Yeah, no, good point on that. And the important thing to say about Jimmy Reed, because not everyone will be really familiar with Jimmy Reed, but he's one of the most influential in terms of his style and his tracks. Kind of like you said, the Stones didn't have to do a lot here. Very much he influenced, people ranging from Elvis Presley to Hank Williams Jr. all loved Jimmy Reed. He's somebody that kind of the Stones could hear it and immediately say, "Hey, we could do that material that works for us." And sadly, he died in 1976 and he was only age 50, so he didn't maybe get to see the world catch up and realize what a powerful voice he was in terms of influencing not only rock artists, but maybe country rock artists as well. And he was, like I say, I know he was a native of Mississippi and a very important figure, I think, in influence on the Rolling Stones. And it's great that they got to kind of pay tribute to him with a great version.
Yeah.
After that, we have a third cover now, another cover. And this, of course, is a song that, pretty much everybody and their mother knows. Drift Away, written by Mentor Williams, popularized by Dobie Gray, although a lot of people have covered this one. His is the one that really pushed that song into the forefront. His is probably the best known version.
Yeah.
And
had a big hit with that back in the 70s.
Yeah. You can't mistake it.
Yeah.
But now this one here, and this is where I talk about, I'm not sure it always works, when the Stones cover a song. I won't say this is, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I sense also this is a new Mick Jagger vocal when I listen to it. This is more recent, but it's pretty good. It's not as strong as the last two, and maybe that's part of the reason why I'm not maybe as excited about it. Is it just followed these two really strong covers, and
that's it. And people are going to think, oh, you're just repeating what TJ said. Really not. My exact words on my notes were, it's a solid performance and a solid recording, but it lacks the power of the tracks we just heard of the two other covers that are on this disc. But there's nothing wrong with it. I think that they do a very serviceable job on it. It's nothing that they don't have to be embarrassed by. I think people will want to hear it, but it's not the strong song. It's not the strongest track on the album.
No, not.
Yeah.
Although I would say, I probably like it a little bit better than "Living in the Heart of Love."
Okay.
Because it is such a strong song to begin with.
Yeah.
Just overall. But that's just my.
Yeah. No, good point.
So that ends the covers, this little 3-track run of covers. We're back to some Jagger and Richards originals, and we have a track entitled "It's a Lie." This track, now, interestingly enough, because it comes off of these 3 covers, this song feels like it could be one of those obscure country blues covers that the Rolling Stones might just pull out of their own personal collection of songs that they like, that the rest of the world is not that familiar with. But this is actually a Jagger and Richards original. And I think it's great for that reason, because it feels very authentic and it feels like you're listening to some obscure cover, but you're not. You're listening to a new original by them.
I love this song on here, and I love the way that it rocks and it rolls and it grooves. There's lots of 2-guitar swagger, which we've come to associate with the Stones sound. And obviously there's some great, not only does Jagger sound great, but there's some cool biting lyrics on it too. I just think it's a great long lost song here. Obviously it goes back a while. I don't know if the lyrics are new or not, but I really like it. And I'm glad the world finally gets to hear it.
Yeah, I agree. Then we have another original, "Come to the Ball." And this is another good barn burner rock and roll blues songs. These ones and the last one succeed at this more, in my opinion, on "Living in the Heart of Love." And I keep picking on that song. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But by way of comparison, they succeed at being these barn burners more than that one does. The only thing I'm going to mention about this particular track, which is probably one of the reasons why they never released it, is the guitar breakdown does use pretty much the same chord progression as "Jumpin' Jack Flash." It sounds a little bit too much like it. There's a guitar breakdown that falls in there, and that might be the reason why they never recorded this one.
but can release it now because, hey, these are, like I said, this is the bonus disc. So
yeah,
people won't be quite as harsh and say, oh, they're copying themselves, that type of thing. Because that would have been the criticism. Had it been released on an official album versus as a bonus disc, there would have been I could see them listening back to this and saying, we're going to get that criticism if we release this.
Yeah.
We're going to get that. Let's just move on to something else.
Yeah.
I could hear that. But otherwise, though, but aside from that, I mean, it's just 4 chords, Aside from that, I think this is a pretty solid little rocker, in my opinion.
I do too.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, what came to mind listening to it, as this is just a pedal to the metal Stones rocker. I just love it. And there's some nice guitar interplay. Jagger sounds great. And there, even though it's like this just ferocious rocker, it doesn't ever bore you or tune you out. I mean, there's enough of that Stones dynamic that, with the musicians and that interplay that they have, and so in that way, it's very worthy of being included here, really. And it's called "Come to the Ball," a great song.
Yeah, and that dynamic you talk about, I think that's kind of the key little it factor that's always been there with the Rolling Stones. Even if they're just covering another, standard blues progression, it's that dynamic that they have that always keeps it exciting. I think you really hit on it right there with that comment. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I just love about about the Stones and bands of that time. It's something unique that they always had. There's obviously other bands, including the Beatles, that had 2 guitar players, but there's something about the Stones and that magical gift that they have, and it just, and again, when that locks in, it's usually going to have something very successful and something exciting to listen to.
And it's interesting to think that they managed to keep that dynamic going, because you had Keith Richards all along, but for a while there, you had Brian Jones as the second guitarist. Then you had Mick Taylor.
Exactly.
And then finally Ron Wood. And they've always, even though they were all different guitarists, they've always managed to have that kind of electricity between the 2 guitars.
Yeah.
Which is another fortunate thing.
Yeah, it's not many bands, like you said, would be successful with having to change such a key player in the band. But the Stones are, they've been able to do that and do it. Ronnie Wood has obviously been on some great recordings, including many of these. I mean, I know that some of these tracks, like I said, they go back to prior to Ronnie Wood's in the band.
You're right. I forgot about that.
But obviously these recordings, really stand up well. I mean, some of them are, like I said, close to 50 years, 50 years of age, going back to the beginning of the 70s. They sound fantastic.
Well, one thing we should add, even though some of these recordings do go back, like you said, to Goat's Head Soup, that doesn't mean Ron Wood isn't on them after the fact. So this brings us now to the second to the last track, Fast Talking, Slow Walking. And now this one, I think this is one of the tracks that'll probably get underrated in my opinion, but I really think this is a standout blues and soul ballad. It feels to me a lot like it could have come off the Some Girls sessions.
According to the liner notes, this song dates back to 1972.
Wow,
so it's
really?
One of the older tracks on here.
I really like this track a lot. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I could almost read what I wrote, but let me go because I probably can't say it better than this. It says a lot that almost 50 years after it was originally recorded, Fast Talking, Slow Walking resonates so powerfully. It's a nuanced and dynamic recording, and I love the way the song artfully builds in power as it moves along. It's just a flat out great song. It really is.
It is. I have I don't know why, but I'm feeling that a lot of people, if they talk about this, they're going to underplay that one because it's a ballad. But yeah, it's a really solid ballad.
Yeah. And the Stones, they really are, I mean, I know, Brown Sugar, Jumpin' Jack Flash, Satisfaction, Under My, but the Stones really can do some amazing ballads, and beyond things like Faraway Eyes and stuff. This is like you said, this is a great song. Don't overlook it. Make sure you check it out.
Definitely don't overlook it. Don't underevaluate it.
Yeah.
So now this brings us to the last track, which is the only alternate track. And in my opinion, this is the star of this disc. This is my personal favorite, which is this alternate reggae influenced version of Start Me Up, the leadoff track, the huge single from this album. And I talked about this album when I in a previous video, and I mentioned that Start Me Up was always one of my least favorite Rolling Stones songs. It was one, and I said a lot of it may have had to do with the fact that it was just played to death, and it appeared in commercials for everything
and sporting events.
Sporting events,
watch it,
yes.
yeah, everywhere. Just one of the songs you hear.
This version really breathes new life for me for this song. I like this reggae, and I'm not a reggae fan. That's another thing. I'm not big into reggae, but I really like this reggae influenced version of this track. And it really has reawoken me to this song. And yeah, I can't get enough of this rendition.
Yeah, no,
please, what are your thoughts?
Hey, I agree with you. I mean, the original version of Start Me Up, whether it was because it was overplayed or just because I'm putting it up against some of their, Wild Horses or Gimme Shelter or something, I'm putting it up against my favorite Stone songs of all time. But this is a great version. I mean, they delve into the reggae sound, but without giving up all the great things about what the Stones can do. And it's an alternate take, and it's also very fun. I think people want to check this one out too. Like we've been saying, it's just great to hear. And my recollection is it's actually an earlier version than the one that we've all come to know over the years.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. This is a much earlier version prior to the more rocked out version that became the lead offs, the big hit single off the album originally when it first came out. This is not the Rolling Stones' first flirtation with reggae. They've certainly played with it before, but this is one of my favorite of their flirtations with that genre.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
My favorites of that. I would also just simply say that I get the feeling that when they had this version completed, they probably listened to it and said, we've got a hit single here, but I think it needs to be more rocked out if it's going to be our first single off the album. If we're it's got to be more traditionally Rolling Stones. I have a feeling that maybe they themselves thought this, or the record label thought this, that yeah, you definitely have a hit single here. You definitely have your breakout single for this album, but it needs to sound more like the Stones.
Yeah.
Being the Stones. And that might have been, I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm just hypothesizing here. I could be full of crap. But I'm just guessing that's why they went back. Even though this is solid, it's complete, it sounds fully realized, totally releasable. I just get the feeling that might have been what made them go back and redo it again. Then again, who knows? They just could be completely wrong.
But no. Again, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I don't know this would have been the first single, but obviously they had a lot of confidence in the song, and they said, "Hey, we can rework it. We can make it more of our style," and that's what they did. But it's nice now that they're sharing with us some of these previously unreleased gems. It's great to hear them.
Great to hear this version.
Yeah.
Someday we should talk about that bonus disc that was on Some Girls, because I remember you first turned me on to that. And I remember you said, this is like a whole new album. Yeah. And when after you turned me onto it, I checked it out. I thought, yeah, you're right. And this is a good album too.
Yeah.
They could have actually released this not as a bonus disc, but as an album. Someday we should talk about that. But at any rate, though,
do that. Yeah.
So those are the 9 tracks that make up the bonus disc of this bonus disc of unreleased material from Tattoo You. And what are your thoughts? Have you heard it? What are your favorites? What are your least favorites? Let us know. Give us your thoughts. Share them in the comments. And if you like what we're doing here and you want to see more videos like this, please press that like button so that the YouTube algorithm recognizes us and recommends us to more music fans. And also, we'd love it if you click subscribe, hit that bell notification so you never miss a video. And at this point now, we want to say thank you to the patron supporters who are helping us make more videos. And if you'd like to be a patron supporter, please go to patreon.com /TJR the original. And Robert, good talking to you on this.
Hey, you too, TJ. Always love talking about the Rolling Stones.
Oh, yeah. And we'll talk more, not just about the Rolling Stones, but also just music in general. And everybody stay tuned for more videos. And y'all stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.